Pan's Labyrinth was directed by Guillermo Del Toro and is a 2006 foreign language film. Taking place after the Spanish Civil War in 1944, a young girl named Ophelia, who now lives with her pregnant mother and authoritarian stepfather, discovers a magical underworld designed for her to return as Princess of the Kingdom. Guillermo Del Toro is one of the most unique directors working in Hollywood. His films always tend to have some kind of fantasy element, or even sci-fi like in Pacific Rim, but whenever I watch a Guillermo del Toro movie, even if I'm not the biggest fan of some of his films, I usually am enthralled by how visually impressive his films are. The same goes for Pan's Labyrinth, a 2006 film, and the visual effects still hold up to this day. Everything, whether it's the visual effects, the creature designs, the look of this fantasy world, this movie, on a technical scale, is one of the best looking movies of the 21st century, no doubt about it. We have seen multiple variations of fantasy worlds in Hollywood history, but the fantasy world we get in Pan's Labyrinth is a tad bit different from others because this one is not afraid to hold back from showing you grotesque imagery. It is not at all a movie made for kids, and I'm really hoping that back in 2006, parents did not mistake this movie for another version of Alice in Wonderland, maybe a G-rated movie. Pan's Labyrinth's underworld has a lot more creepy, disturbing creatures that you would not want to encounter in real life. This movie probably gave some kids nightmares back in the 2000s decade. Now, what you may expect going into your viewing of Pan's Labyrinth is to see an abundance of fantasy elements, and while we do get some, there isn't nearly enough for you to feel satisfied, at least for some people. That also goes for myself. I'll touch more on that later on in this review, but this film mostly balances the fantasy plot with a real-life war plot. In fact, I would say Pan's Labyrinth focuses on the war plot for about 70% of the time, maybe even 80% of the time, and the rest is dedicated to the fantasy elements. Immediately, for some people who are expecting to see an all-out fantasy vibe, that is not the case. Don't go into Pan's Labyrinth thinking this movie will be 100% a fantasy movie. It's not really even close to that, but honestly, even if I wish I saw more fantasy elements included in Pan's Labyrinth, I was okay with the war plot in this film because I never found a moment in this movie where I was bored. I was always glued to the screen and interested to see what was going to happen next. This movie captivated me, actually. You may even look at this film and say the main plot is between the girl, her stepfather being overly authoritarian, and everything going on with the Spanish Civil War, where these men who are the fascists are facing off against these rebels. That's kind of where the movie lays its focus on, and the secondary plot is the fantasy world stuff. But we still get a lot of great stuff in the film's war plot. There is this overly strict authoritarian stepfather for this little girl, and you grow to hate this guy throughout the entire movie. From the first shot that he's in to the final shot, your hatred of this man goes from 0 to 1,000 real quickly. The film overall gives us a great glimpse of the horrors of war, plus how terrible it might be for someone who's the daughter of an evil authoritarian war captain. And we see how much this has an impact on not only the little girl, but also the girl's mother, as well as people who work for this war captain. The guy is an awful, awful person. He treats nobody with respect. So you get an idea of how these characters are feeling in this film. All in all, I did not mind that a majority of Pan's Labyrinth's focus was centered on this war plot, despite the fact that it is similar to other familiar war stories we've seen before. I still found myself rooting for the characters. I was intrigued by the film's plot. I really wanted to see what was going to happen next, and above all, we still get the fantasy elements. We still get a really great story underneath the surface. And the ending of this film is extremely ambiguous. You have no idea if these fantasy elements are actually real or if they were all just in the girl's head. We don't know, but I like how this movie ends its story. Again, I think my biggest complaint is how the film does not have nearly as many fantasy elements as I would prefer, but we still get a great plot revolving around the Spanish Civil War. My other complaint with the movie is how one of the characters makes a really brain-dead decision. If you have not seen the movie, I'm not going to reveal what this is, but one of the characters in the movie is warned about doing something. They are warned multiple times. And yet this character does not listen to them. They do the exact opposite. Why they do the exact opposite, I have no idea. I thought that was lazy writing, to be honest. As a whole, though, I think Guillermo Del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth is a really good movie, especially for those adults who love fantasy worlds. So I'm giving Pan's Labyrinth an 84%. Alright, for those of you who also happen to see Pan's Labyrinth, be sure to let me down below in the comment section what your thoughts are of it. Do you think it's Guillermo del Toro's best movie, or do you like one of his other films better, like Hellboy, for instance, or even The Shape of Water, which came out a couple of years ago? And as always, guys, if you are new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.